Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. And besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fan fiction it inspires. Before we begin, just want to remind you to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to us so you don't miss any episodes or bonus stuff that we do. I'm Sandra.
I'm Karlee, and I had a few ideas of how to start this episode out, which I just filled Sandra in on. But what I think I'm going to do is, this week, we're talking about how it's not sexual assault if it A, is done by a woman, or B, happens to a man. Yes, you're still on the Supernatural podcast. Don't worry, we haven't gone completely rogue. This has been on the list. Oh, God, way back when. You remember when we made the to-do list, Sandra? You remember when we made the episode list?
I feel like it was like...
so long ago.
Yeah, it's at least almost maybe a year. Because I know we kept like working on things and putting ideas in place. Yeah.
I want y'all to know that list is not a great deal shorter than it was when it started. Because they're backup ideas. Like things happen and then we're like, oh, we need an episode for this. We'll do this. So this was on the list, but then like so many things, it was triggered by a real life event, which was our favorite angel actor, not that one in the trench coat, our favorite archangel actor. Rich and Rob do the Then and Now podcast. And they covered Red Sky at Morning. I looked it up. It's at Morning. Okay. And it's, do you guys say, like, are you aware of the phrase, Red Sky at Morning, Red Sky at Night? I'm
not. That doesn't mean that Americans as a whole aren't. That's just me.
because when I looked it up, when I looked up the episode, it was like the episode title is based on the phrase Red Sky at Morning, Sailor's Warning, Red Sky at Night, Sailor's Delight. And I was like, that's weird because we say shepherds in the UK.
I've never heard of that before, so that's completely new to me. Yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering why it was called Red Sky at Morning. Now I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, there we go.
There we go.
So apparently, whoever did that, whatever part of the country they come from, they say sailors, and that ties into the episode quite well. Actually, it would not work if it wasn't sailors, because we said red sky it's Red Sky in the morning in the UK, Shepherd's Warning, Red Sky at Night, Shepherd's Delight. And if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it's a Red Dawn, blood was spilled this night. I'm paraphrasing, probably. But anyway, they covered Red Sky at Morning, and Sam gets, I'm just going to be blunt about it. Sam gets sexually assaulted by the little old dear that he has to take on a date while Bella and Dean go steal whatever it is they need to steal to deal with the ghost ship, blah, 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 blah. So this happened, and Rob, I haven't listened to the episode. It's not a podcast that I follow, but good old Twitter filled me in anyway. Rob and Rich were apparently, laughing and joking about Sam's discomfort during the party scenes. And we see him drink quite heavily and come and complain, and Dean and Bella mock him, and he's an unhappy boy. And I saw on Twitter some people kind of going, that's not a great take to take. You probably don't do that. So there were people saying, this is like a bad look to be laughing about that. It's, it's just as serious when this kind of stuff occurs against men as it is when it occurs against women. It shouldn't be laughed off. And on the back of that, people were then saying that they had been blocked. Now, I'm not sure if they had been blocked by the podcast account or by Rich or Rob, or the Richard Speight Jr. Fan World account is another one. I'm not sure who was blocked by what, whatever. But people were being quite vocal about this. And Rich came and was like, who blocked you? What has happened? And then the podcast tweeted out, this was on the 7th of February, and the podcast came and tweeted that the podcast hasn't blocked anybody, that they welcome the discussion, they want to see it, blah 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 blah. And then Rich came and quote tweeted. So Julia, who goes by the Twitter name Julia Alter Ego, replied to Rich asking a user who goes by Laura, which is at BreatheFire210. Rich had quote tweeted them and asked who blocked them. Julia has replied to Rich and said, I don't know, Rich, I don't know who did or did not block Laura, but she has a valid point. I like the podcast, but this is one of the rare times I disagreed with you and Rob. Infringement of Sam's bodily autonomy for plot or laughs is a running theme in the show. This is all fine. We're all fine. Rich quote tweeted, and then I lost approximately 96% of my shit and started yelling at Sandra about it. Sorry. He quote tweets, disagreeing is great. Love that folks are sharing opinions about the show in general, specific episodes, and about our reviews. That's what it's all about. Tagged Rob, tagged the podcast. Stop fucking talking, Richard! Stop talking! So, that kickstarted this. So, I feel like I should probably address our thoughts on Rich and his tweets first. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but you spoke out of turn, and I like you. So, roll it back, man. He won't. It's been it's the 17th today as we're recording. He's not rolled it back. He's not gonna. He's probably not listening to this either. I'm sorry, Rich. I don't have the same compulsion. If you are listening to this, you don't meet the criteria for me to bankrupt myself and my family to come and apologize to you in person. Soz. I'll tweet you though. Oh God. That's I don't even know what happened there. So my thoughts on this are if multiple people are telling you that your take on something is wrong, hurtful, damaging, offensive, the position to take on the back of that is not, oh, isn't it great to disagree with people? That's not, no. Multiple people are telling you that what you're saying is, it is an opinion. And I feel like Rich and Rob probably do have insider knowledge in terms of Jared's interpretation of it and his interpretation of how Sam felt about it. So they maybe have more knowledge than us. Maybe Jared thinks it's fucking hilarious as well. I hope not, but maybe he does. But still, if he has that insider knowledge, share that. Defend your position. If you go, yeah, I understand what you guys are saying, but we've spoken to Jared about this, and Jared thinks this, and he thinks that Sam thinks this, blah, 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 blah. Don't just go, nah, isn't it great that we disagree? Because that's hurtful and damaging. Don't you do that. So that's that kickstarted this episode, because I was very much in the theme of we need to talk about Misha. I was like, we need to talk about this. This is not all right. We need to discuss this. But it was on the docket before that. It was on the to-do list. Before we dive into the actual show, do you have any thoughts about this, Sandra? Or did you just sit there and listen to me screaming into the void and go, okay?
No, I think
and then just move on.
No.
Which is fine if you did. Because I do that a lot. I yell at this poor girl so much about really random shit that most of the time she probably doesn't even know. And I'm just like, fucking this. And then I move on and she moves on.
I think so. I'm gonna go from the viewpoint too that we're talking about a man, we're talking about a white male, we're talking about someone who is okay with the idea of disagreeing but not maybe actually listening to somebody else's viewpoint and seeing why they think the way that they think. So I think saying that you disagree is just an easy way of that's your out for people. And I know we've had discussions and I learn a lot about my internal bias and how I've been brought up in certain situations and what's been ingrained in my brain, which I think we're going to get into with some of these situations that we talk about with the boys in. So I think it's just frustrating because they've got a platform. I think we would hope that we might have a platform where we can open up someone's perspective on things that maybe they didn't think about that way. So it's all about how much do you want to use your platform for good? Or are you just interested in making a buck? I think you could do both, but it's really hard to do that well. So I think that's where maybe Mr. Spate might be at. Look, I'm just doing this. It's a gig. We're just going to chit chat about a show, have a couple laughs. It's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? I think that's where, and again, he's done a lot of behind the scenes with Supernatural too, not at this stage of whatever they're discussing, right? Like he was in the show maybe a couple times up until this point, or not even, maybe just once, and then had more of a role in directing. And I'm sure that can kind of fashion or shape episodes. And I think those are where maybe like you could really dive into, well, where was your thought process here, Richard? That kind of stuff. So yeah, I just think it's a white guy. And I don't know how much change you can have with an older white dude, but I would hope that maybe he would look at the fandom that he's part of and is representing too, in a way, in that situation. I don't know if that made sense or not, but he feels like he's more my age, my generation too. So I think I inherently see where he's just not even going to like, I don't know him. I don't know the man. I don't know his inner thoughts, but he and Rob just seem to like, hey, let's just do this thing. You know, they asked us, let's do this thing.
Yeah, it is difficult. Obviously I'm never a fan of giving people an out by going, oh, it's just the generation. It's just the age. Everyone can learn.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Everyone can learn.
Yeah.
But I do think to be able to do that, you have to be aware of your own biases. And I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people of that generation are not. And this is not me saying that Rich is a bad guy. This is not like the Misha thing was a thing. This is just me going, you made a bad comment, dude. That's not all right. You know, have a think about it.
Yeah, and I just don't know how much of a think he's going to have. Like that's my issue with that. Like knowing being in the generation of people. I don't know how much of a think he might actually have about that, unless maybe he's got some younger. You know, I don't know. I know he's got kids. I don't know if that would ever be a discussion that they would have, you know, with him. Or again, there's opportunities, but I don't know how much he's investing in what the fans are going to be saying about it, as much as if it was somebody else in his immediate circle kind of situation. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I'm not angry. I'm just like, oh, really?
You want a light bulb to go off, kind of. And
I
maybe
just want to shake him and just be like, this is not the thing, my guy. No.
Maybe something did, and we didn't get the tail end of it because it wasn't addressed online. So that could be a way to maybe hope that maybe this got him some time to think about it. Maybe another episode might address it. Maybe he might talk about it in a future episode. Well,
as we're about to find out, there's plenty of fucking opportunities to address it.
Yeah.
Plenty. So
absolutely.
It was on the to-do list, but that tweet, that exchange on Twitter, which I follow Rich, which is probably why I saw it. Because I see a lot of things I don't want to see on Twitter. You know, it's such is the nature of the algorithm.
Which is why we were talking for 45 minutes before we recorded.
The bloody, I don't know whether to call it the Twitter part of the fandom or Twitter itself. There's some issues out there, guys. There's some issues out there.
Yeah.
But that's what kind of kicked this off, because that does happen quite a lot. We'll have something vaguely planned and something will happen and I'll be like, we need to talk about this immediately. So I will be the first to admit, Sandra made a beautiful table. I've come round, guys. I've come round. Y'all remember a year ago when I was like, we don't need tables. Tables piss me off. Now I'm like, that was a good table, Sandra. I'm really in for that table. So we've got a table. It's all like, it's in like chronological order. It's got thoughts in it.
I wish it was finished, but we didn't.
I don't think there's that many after season 10. I didn't. I'll be the first to hold my hands up. This was my idea. So I went, I will do the Sam stuff. And Sandra, you do the Dean things. Because I didn't really think this had happened that much to Dean. And then I went and Googled it and I took a lot of information from a few Tumblr blogs. And it happens to Dean more than I thought it did. So I will be the first one to admit that this probably doesn't cover every single instance, even in the seasons that I mentioned. But we thought we'd just run through some of the occasions that the boys are sexually assaulted. People are very sexually not suggestive, but aggressive towards them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, and we'll get into it.
Mm-hmm.
So this one took me by surprise. I'll start. This one took me by surprise. I got this straight from a Tumblr blog that I can probably find and link if Sandra decides this is information that she wants. It's actually in the pilot. We start as we mean to go on with this fucking show. It's actually in the pilot.
Mm.
So Sam's in the car with the woman in white. She locks all the doors. She won't let him out. And she just like gets on top of him in the back seat, tries to kiss him. She's rubbing up against him, whatever. And he is very much not into this.
Mm-hmm.
He very much does not want any part of this, but it happens anyway. And it's never addressed. I don't even think he tells Dean.
Mm-mm.
It's just never addressed.
No.
So Sandra really kindly puts thought columns in these tables and then doesn't populate them. It was you! You put the thought columns in.
I did.
What do you think about this, Sandra?
No, I
With
think
your unpopulated box.
So I think here's where we get into discussions, and we've talked about this before, where the boys, I think it's all about their world and how they're viewed within the world and how that differs from societal stuff. I think a lot of the time, I always noticed, and we'll get into it more, but I think it happens even Sam's the one instance where I think this is different. I think it's different for Sam and Dean too. I feel like for Dean, a lot of the stuff that's occurring with him, it's always a supernatural power play in some way. Sam, I think it's muddier in a lot of situations. And maybe there's some instances later on where that's actually not the case for Dean that I just didn't clock or didn't think about. So I think anytime there's that, they're up against supernatural entities that are either like female or female form, I feel like this is kind of like thrown about or used a lot more for whatever purpose in the show. But yes, it's definitely, he does not want. He does not want. It's not something he's at all wanting to have happen to him. So
the
yes.
thing for me is, and I considered sort of splitting this up into monsters and supernatural entities versus humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that from the writer's perspective, they're looking for a way to match the boy's strength.
Mm-hmm.
You can it's not necessarily, especially in this one, especially in the pilot, it's not necessarily believable that this little, waif-like ghost is going to beat the unholy hell out of someone Sam's size.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give the pilot a pass on that. But later down the line, we know that they can.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they can. Ghosts are strong. Demons are strong. Most supernatural monsters and entities are strong. But for some reason, as you say, if it's a female or a female form, that is the path that is taken as opposed to pure violence.
Yeah. And I will say, I remember listening to the commentary of the pilot, and the director, David Nutter, seemed like he had a thing for the actress. How beautiful she was, So in a way, I think he was utilizing the misogyny, like to his advantage too, possibly in the way it was directed and like how to have this.
Do you know what? That makes sense for an absolutely glaring plot hole in the pilot, which is that the woman in white attacks people who have cheated, and Sam very clearly says, "You can't kill me. I'm not unfaithful." And she's like, "Oh, but you will be." Like, fucking no.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just something I thought about too, just as we were discussing it. So I think life imitates art, imitates life, all that kind of thing. And what somebody's decision in a scene is, whether it's directing or writing, and then how that ends up turning into something that you could kind of just gloss over and not really think about being an issue.
Yeah. And I think with the monsters, even though you could take this as you know, they could have chosen to go down a more violent route. It's meant to unsettle the boys, isn't it? It's meant to convey that kind of factor of like something unclean touching you, doing things to you without your consent. And especially in the early seasons with the monsters, we'll give that a pass. I would give it more of a pass if, look into the next one, they'd ever had a male demon do this, ever. So Shadow, 116, Meg ties up, OG Meg ties up Sam and Dean and, you know, touches them inappropriately, says what she's going to do, blah, 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 blah. I'd give them more of a pass if we'd ever seen a male demon do that. You could just be like, no, demon's gonna demon, you know? This is, and again, we're still in the first season. We haven't really established all the rules around monsters. Season 15 veterans know that Meg, allegedly, could have thrown them wherever she wanted to do, you know, done whatever, held them up against a wall, whatever, with just a flick of her hand. She didn't need to tie them up and violate them like that.
Yeah. I think the only thing where I'm thinking of with the Crossroads demon stuff, I can only think about like Crowley when you're first introduced to him and he's got the deal with the dude. And
not with the banker. And the kiss.
And the kiss. That and maybe
and Bobby as well.
And Bobby, you know. But again, like
it's that soulless Sam, isn't it?
Crowley's a different, different entity entirely. But that again, like to me, it all comes back to just like how sexual assault in general, it's all about power. And I feel like that's kind of being utilized against the boys who are very in their own right, big dudes. And in again, like a normal scenario, which we've talked about, you know, would maybe be the one that would have the advantage in a situation. But when it comes to supernatural stuff, I think they lean on that a lot. For whatever reason. But yeah, he's definitely, again, and I think even Meg, because I just watched that scene, Meg's like, I saw you watching me, but it's like, but Sam was watching what he thought was not a demon at that time. So
yeah, because Meg, they were a little bit flirty, they were a little bit, you know, but he didn't know that it was a demon. And crucial point.
And at that point, it was a hard pass.
Consent can be revoked at any point for any reason. And it's, you know, he was like, yes, beautiful woman. Probably would hit that. Demon. Oh, God, no, don't touch me. God, that was so Yorkshire as well. Sometimes this happens. You know, but like, he withdrew his consent, so for her to be like, oh, I saw you watching me, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean shit. Meg's a prolific offender for this as well. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But she comes up a lot. So we're still in season 1. So we're side-eyeing it, but they're still establishing rules, so we're giving it a pass. And then we've got 120, Dead Man's Blood, which I didn't remember, Sandra did. The female vamp kisses Dean against his will. Dean is bait on the side of the road.
Yeah.
No, Sandra did populate this thoughts one.
I populated this one just because, and I actually just recently, and I'm sure you're not caught up on the Winchesters, but I saw a similar scene where Mary is actually by the side of the road with a a truck that looks like it, needs some assistance. I guess to my mind, like the way the scene plays out, Dean's there's not a lot of hesitancy or surprise that, he's going to have to, that it occurs, I guess, even in the kiss. And that just made me, again, I start to think, what other things maybe like this has happened before? I know it's the first vamp interaction, but like, has anything else even similar like this could have even been a thing with a supernatural being? And then that makes me think, what's happened with supernatural beings and what's possibly happened with the human variety when it comes to Dean. But yeah, sexual.
I'm gonna tie that one and actually the next one. But I think it's accepted by a lot of a lot of us now, particularly those of us in the fan fiction community, that Dean probably did some stuff he'd rather not talk about to get money to feed Sam and himself when they were kids.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't particularly want to go any further into that, because obviously it's not canon. Jensen's never come out and said it or anything. No, wait, no, Jensen did.
Mm-hmm.
No, Jensen did.
Mm-hmm.
Jensen did. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
no, we can. But yeah, so I think a lot of us get on board with that. So we're still pretty early in the season. We don't know necessarily if Dean's had to do that recently. I know him and John had the credit card scams things going on,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it doesn't always work. And he'd been on his own for a little while, and he'd been with John before. Like, we don't know if Dean had to keep doing that after
And
Sam left.
How readily would Dean have been used as bait, I guess, before Sammy would be used as bait, is my thinking too. Like, no matter what, I just think it would always have been Dean probably first. Probably for his own, like, wanting to, for Sam's benefit as well. Like, not wanting to put Sam complex. In it. Yeah.
But also, for me, that kind of ties into Dean not seeing a problem with using his body in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still selling his body. It's just for a different purpose.
Yeah.
He's not going to get money at the end of it, but he's going to gank the monster, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that it doesn't make it any less wrong. I'm just coming at it from a different angle, because Dean's lived experience is obviously very different to Sam's lived experience. So we have that in Dead Man's Blood. 3-1, The Magnificent Seven. Again, Sandra's written unwanted advances by lust, even though Dean initiates the kiss. And then put thoughts, power play, acting as bait. So yeah, Dean initiated the kiss. That doesn't make it any less wrong.
Yeah. So this goes back to another episode, the episode right before this, the season finale of season 2. I didn't put this down. It was All Hell Breaks Loose part 2, when Dean makes the deal with the Crossroads demon. It's a female, and they bat around. She's just like, no way, 10 years, no way 5. And then she says 1 year, and he seals the deal, kisses her first too. So again, there's that power thing. Like, he's being forced to on someone else's terms. He's got to seal the deal some way. So again, that could have all sorts of connotations or reflections on other things that have had to occur, for whatever reason.
I think it's probably at this point probably a good idea to just kind of shoehorn in maybe the idea of consent and the fact that you can consent to something, but it can still be a sexual assault or a rape or something like that. There is coercive rape. There is, consent under duress, things like that. So in both of those, in All Hell Breaks Loose Part 2 and The Magnificent Seven, Dean initiates the sexual contact, but that does not mean true consent.
Right. Yeah.
And that's I'm writing something at the moment that's playing very, very, very much with those ideas of consent and what it means and how it can be manipulated. And I consider everything that I've written to be rape non-consensual, because even though my characters may verbally say yes, they may engage in sexual acts, it is not true consent between two people. So just because someone initiates something, that doesn't necessarily change the situation. If they are at a power disadvantage in some way, then that's
it's kind of like whatever you're doing to kind of like survive scenario at that point, like just to get yourself out of situation. Of course. So from there we come on to what started it all.
What started it all? Yeah, look, season 2 didn't even get a mention. Go season 2. No No questionable scenes in season 2. So then we come on to Red Sky Morning, 36. Oh, Sam and Gertrude. So, as we discussed, Dean and Bella need to go get whatever the fuck it is they need to go get from the...
I think it was a hand. I think it was a hand.
Oh, was it the Hand of Glory? The only thing I remember from that is somebody stole my car. That's it. That's the only bit I remember.
How could you forget the "Don't Objectify Me" by Dean and Bella when he comes down the steps?
Yeah, that. Yeah, no, that's true.
They look good in tuxes, as we objectify.
They do. We're not doing anything. We're just talking about it. That's different. If it's a crime to talk about it, lock me up now. That's a problem. So yeah, they go to this party. Dean and Bella are gonna go and do whatever they're gonna do, and Sam has to distract the old lady, who is handsy. She's handsy, y'all. She's handsy. She grabs his ass. She's making sexual comments. I sound like such a prude. Good Lord. She's very inappropriate with my boy, who is so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. He goes over to Dean and Bella and he's like, how long are you going to be? Because I am not going to tolerate this. Mm-hmm. And Dean mocks him. He's like, you smell like sex. Mm-hmm. And Sam is just like, it's like bitch face number 18, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So Sandra put in Sandra's thoughts, she's put, this is where I waffle with Sam and Dean when they are putting themselves in this type of situation for the case. And then I came back at her and I was like, date does not equal consensual touching. She acted inappropriately. Mm-hmm. They could have gone. He offered to be her date. That's fine. They could have gone. They could have talked. They could have danced. And it could have been completely platonic. Mm-hmm. She decided she was going to help herself to several handfuls and went along with that. And that is wildly inappropriate. Mm-hmm. And I would say that is the first, because she's a human as well.
Yeah.
Everything else we've talked about has been monsters. So this is the first, I don't want to say true sexual assault, but like this carries a bit more weight because there's no power play behind it. There's no trying to manipulate a situation. Nobody's being bait. This is just one human thinking they are entitled to another human's body with nothing else going on beyond that. And I think that's why this one sticks in my throat so much because I'm like, you know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was eons ago. So even if I could conjure a situation where I could be like, Jared, Red Sky at Morning, groping, where do you stand on it? Where do you think Sam stood on it? He'd probably give me his blank, cute puppy dog face and be like, did season 3 happen? That was so long ago. So, I think I'd be interested.
Yeah, this gets into, again, I think where my brain goes back into when I was growing up. There was the big thing and it started to get into, you'd always hear initially, and again, I think I've grown from this, but this is where I do sort of fall back into not looking at it from the guy's perspective, where you'd hear things like, oh, well, look at the way she was dressed. Why was she there? Like, why was she in that situation to begin with? So I feel there's that in me that I'm always trying to figure out and remind myself of the situation. Again, I was immediately, like you said, I was thinking about it from it's Sam and Dean, and that was me not thinking about just the situation itself and the consent part. So, yeah.
I think it's always worth considering, Sandra, sort of, if that's where your brain defaults to go, there's nothing wrong with that. You just have a chat with yourself about it. You're like, no, we're amending those tidings. But if you're listening to this and going, I don't really see where you guys are coming from, reverse the genders. And that's going to become real fucking important later on. Reverse the genders. If in the pilot, if Sam and Dean were girls and a ghost male pinned girl Sam down in the back of the Impala and started touching and trying to kiss and blah, blah, blah. Well, she was fighting frantically to get away. Nobody would question whether that was inappropriate.
Yeah.
Exactly the same with this. Everyone's like, it's funny. And people of that generation, I think she was meant to be like in her 60s or 70s she was old, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how old, but like grandma generation, as I would call it, nans.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, this seems to be culturally acceptable for nans
to like grab a guy's ass and stuff and say things.
Grab his ass and say,
oh my gosh, conventions. I'm sure a lot of grannies have gotten away with some shit that other people would not be able to get away with. There's been I'm pretty much guaranteeing there's been rogue hands on over top of some curvy areas of both Jared and Jensen. I'm sure of it. I'm sure
you're right. And isn't that just disgusting?
Mm-hmm. Again, I think that's
gross?
when we also talk about everything bleeds over, but like talking about how much Jared and Jensen have been through in Hollywood, in the machine, what they have been, stuff that's happened to them that maybe they don't even clock, you know what I mean, as inappropriate.
A real good example of that is, I think it's in the season. It's the scene where Sam's shirtless for the first time. Comes out of the shower in the motel. He's got the towel wrapped around him.
Isn't that like the first season?
Yeah, I think it's season 1. There is no reason for that scene to exist. It contributes nothing to plot at all. It is solely there because people wanted to see more skin. And Sam was the one. Whether Sam agreed to this, because we know Jensen is Jared. We know Jensen's always been a little bit insecure about his body. So maybe Jared was like, "I'll take the fall. It's fine. I'll get the show."
Yeah, but
whatever.
Dean did it first in the Skin episode 1/6 when he was like when the shapeshifter, he was taking off his shirt, and I always remember that thing that Kripke talks about where like fans were going crazy because they were like real time saying like, "Oh my gosh, Dean's taking his shirt off," and then he was ripping his skin and like, "Oh my god, Dean's taking his skin off." And it was like you don't even give me a chance to objectify. You're like immediately like, that's gonna get all gory and stuff. Where with that scene, I think with Sam, it was like 10 seconds of glory.
It was fan
glorious
service.
chest.
Yeah, it was fan service. With the Dean in Skin, that served a plot purpose. You'd be like, hello.
Right.
Dean, oh god, this taking his skin off. That was a plot device to show how shapeshifters change form. They take their skin off. That's fucking icky. Sam coming out the shower was nada. And he was, season 1, 22, 23?
Yeah, I think it was Hell House. Now I'm gonna I'll check, but I think it was the Hell House episode.
I'm just gonna look.
Because I'm just like,
and it's worth pointing out that you can see that he is wearing black shorts under the towel. So he's clearly trying to preserve what little modesty is being allowed to him. So, Jared he's not shy about taking his clothes off. He's not shy about his body. And if you work that fucking hard for it, good Christ, I wouldn't wear clothes. I'd be like, fight me, look at me. Let me in the supermarket, I gotta buy berries, So I don't think I don't think it particularly bothers him. But you don't know, at 22, 23, if someone said to you, oh, you have to come out of the shower and pretend to be naked, would you have been all right with it? You, Sandra, you audience members, listeners, I wouldn't. I would have been really uncomfortable. Yeah. So yeah, definitely worth considering sort of the machine of the entertainment industry in and amongst this as well, because we definitely went there with a point, and I was like, they made Jared take his shirt off. And you know what, I will be the first person to objectify Sam and Dean, not Jared and Jensen. Sam and Dean are fictional characters. I can objectify them to my heart's content. I would be the first person to do that. They are hot, but if we'd never seen skin through the whole of the show, I wouldn't love them any less. Yeah, it's just like a nice little sprinkles on the cake of love. I'm like, this is fucking great, and now it's got sprinkles on it. Isn't that amazing? It didn't. Yeah, it didn't need
to happen. I was right. It was Hell House. Yay. Do I get a
It was
sticker?
Hell House. Yay. You get a sticker. Stickers all around. Stickers all around.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's worth considering if you're kind of, like I said, if you're side-eyeing the things that we're saying, or even if your default response is, but it's not because blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I remember where I was going with that. Little old ladies getting away with shit. Little old ladies, you know, like you bring a boyfriend to meet your parents and they're like, oh, they're so handsome, and like squeeze their ass and be like, oh, if I was 20 years younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
If a man, if it was a female, I think Sam's meant to be like 22 in season 1. So what would he have been? 20, 22, 23.
He was
24.
a year older, right? Yeah, I think they're a year
Was he
older
a
than
year-
their characters. So I think he would have been 23. Maybe at that point he would have been 24. I can't remember, just based off of when it was filmed and stuff.
I don't know. He's in his early to mid 20s, let's
Mhm.
say. So we've got an early to mid 20s girl who's already been forced to accompany an old man on a date. So her sister and we'll make Bella a man as well, whatever, can go and do what they're going to do. If this was a 60s, 70s-year-old man getting handsy and grabby and sexually suggestive with a young girl, there would be outcry. It would not be all right. It certainly wouldn't be laughed at. People would be like, whoa, that is so far over the line. So far over the line. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
where I think with...
again,
yeah, go ahead.
Society, look at yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If Grandad, if you're a guy and you brought your girlfriend home and Grandad started grabbing her ass and going, oh, if I was 20 years younger,
Mm-hmm.
everyone would be like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
You'd whisk your girlfriend out of there so quickly, your granddad wouldn't even see your fucking coattails.
Yeah.
Not that anybody wears coattails anymore. But it would not be appropriate. But when grandma does it, when your sweet little nan makes those jokes about your boyfriend, everyone's like, oh, it's just grandma. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Bath. Take a look at yourselves, society, in general. I'm giving myself so much fucking ick now. Okay. So moving forward. Then we have No Rest for the Wicked, 316, which is the season finale. Lilith takes over Ruby's meat suit and kisses Sam.
Demons are just sucky.
Yeah, and you know what? If they portrayed this as a demonic trait, they wouldn't even be on the list. I mean, they might be on the list. But if it was just like, oh, demons are sexually aggressive, demons are, whatever, it wouldn't be that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if it was a male demon that had kissed male Sam or a male demon that had kissed female Sam, everyone would be like, whoa, no.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then I've got some stuff grouped together here. So, various season 4 episodes when we hear Dean talk about his time in hell, and specifically the episodes with Alistair where he's torturing him, it is heavily implied that Dean was sexually assaulted, raped during his time in hell.
Yeah.
Dean never comes out explicitly and says it, but it's heavily implied, and especially the conversations with Dean and Alistair, it's implied that maybe it was other people, but maybe it was Alistair as well. It's all there, and for all my yelling about how, well, if it was just a demon thing and male demons did it as well, it's still an occasion of sexual assault, so we're still going to look at it.
And I think with the torture aspect of it, and I think that parallels what we, pretty much assume similar things that would have happened to Sam in the cage. And I think that's talked about a little bit more in some other seasons. Yeah. Yeah. It
is. So also from various season 4 episodes, Sam and Ruby. Now we all know Sam and Ruby led to a beautiful romance from Jared and Jen. It's fucking cute, blah, 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 blah. But let's just look at it in the context of the show. She is effectively giving him drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Her payment for those drugs is sex. Is that consensual? No.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. If you fuck your drug dealer to get your drugs, that's sex work.
Mm-hmm.
That's payment. That's you're selling your body to obtain something.
Yeah.
So that's, And I think it's worth bearing in mind as well. I grabbed this from a Tumblr blog. Ruby is the one that initiates all that, and she initiates that while Sam is both drunk and high and in mourning. He is not in his right state of mind. We see him taking pills and we see him drinking. He is very clearly not sober, but she coerces him into sex anyway. And I think I don't know whether it was a conscious choice on Jared's part, but it always sticks in my mind that when she puts her hand down his pants and he lifts her into his lap, and the scene's fucking amazing. Good Lord. But there's like a pained look on his face. Like, it's not the face of a man who's enjoying himself. And I don't know if that's because Jared was trying to deal with his own bodily reaction to a hot girl that he's attracted to in his lap, or if it was a character choice, an acting choice, but he looks like he's in pain. He doesn't look like he's enjoying this. So I just think that's worth considering. And then obviously the whole Sam Ruby Demon Blood arc as a whole is not consensual.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, she gave him the blood before they had sex. We saw that a few times, but still, she's
got the power.
The expectation. Yeah. Yeah, she's got the power, and she's obviously set a precedent of sex for blood. So,
yeah,
I'm just getting skeevy about that. Just all about it. And then various episodes, I know Pamela came into she came in season 4, didn't she? She was they called her for the first one with Castiel. Yeah. So Pamela, we like Pamela. We do. She's nice. We like her. We were all very sad when she died. She's fucking handsy though. She handsy. And the boys don't they don't seem to dislike this as a concept. They both seem like, Sam especially seems to find it quite cute, quite endearing. And Dean's obviously very jealous, and Sam is not invited. Yeah. I love that scene. But still,
she's
very much the same.
I also see, this is where I think it's just blatant flirting from Pamela. I really do think that, and I think that like that's the one. Yeah,
you can flirt without touching.
Using. Yeah, you can, but she's choosing not to.
That's it. This is in very much
a hand
the same way.
Somewhere where she thinks the angel. Yeah, well, didn't touch me there.
Yeah. That's it. It's similar to Gertrude. Yeah. Both humans thinking they're entitled to another person's body. And I don't know, I think there's some I don't know, it says a lot about the boys, doesn't it? That because she's young-ish and attractive, they're like, with it. Yeah. But when it was Gertrude, it was gross and disgusting, Challenge your own inner bias there, guys.
Yeah.
But I still think
she definitely could have not been as handsy. Yes, definitely. She could have just put a hand on the shoulder, maybe that instead. Yeah.
Am I confusing a fic for canon again? Because I do this a lot.
What?
Is there a thing later in the show where they're talking about someone that they know through John, and Sam fucked her and Dean fucked her, and they're debating whether they think John fucked her as well? Sandra would know. It's probably a fic.
The only thing I could think about is the Bobby episode where there was the one hunter that you find out had sex with Bobby and Sam and Dean. I don't remember anything about.
Oh, it could have been
John.
I could be. Or
you could have read a fic too that was like that. Yeah, there's also that possibility.
Did Sam have sex with her while he was soulless?
So this was, I don't think so. This was season 7, but it sounded like it happened way back, like before.
Oh, right.
So I don't think it was when he was soulless.
I could be thinking of that then, and I'm confusing John for Bobby. But for some reason, I had it in my head that maybe that was Pamela, because I was like, we don't know. Maybe there's some history, but then I'm thinking about it, and there isn't, because Bobby calls Pamela, doesn't he? He's like, I know this psychic, and she comes in from the off as overtly flirtatious and
she's flirty with Bobby. Like, she's flirty with Bobby right off the bat too. So she's flirty with everybody. Yeah.
Do you know what? That's absolutely fine. Dean flirts with anything with a skirt, but he doesn't put his hands on people. That's the crucial point for me.
Yeah.
being flirty is fine. Making those kind of comments to see if someone is receptive. I mean, it's a bit blunt, but some people work like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put your hands on someone without invitation, that's when it crosses the line for me.
Yeah.
And she grabs, she pinches asses, she's well on her way to being, it's just grandma. It's just Pamela, isn't it? She squeezes bums. No, she doesn't. Stop that, Pamela. So, yeah, it's unfortunate because I really liked Pamela as a character, but I could never get over that. I could never get over like her greeting to the boys with a slap on the ass. Like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And then we've got one specific season 4 episode. Oh shit, I didn't put Chris Angel is a douchebag is in season 4 as well. Sex and Violence 414. Just all of it. All of it. I'm just going to gesture at the whole thing.
So is it? So in particular, too, is it all of it? Okay, but like,
well, no, because when we get to the climax of the episode, and I'm like, he's like, I gave Dean what he wanted. A little brother looks up to him, blah 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 blah, and then he infects Sam, and I think it might be something to do with the manipulation of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just skeevy, okay? Yeah. Nothing is overt. Nothing is overt. But the venom to control them, making them do like he could have made them fuck if he'd wanted to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There've been enough fanfics written to the tune of that.
And it has a
he absolutely could.
It has that, it has that underlaying in there too of like,
it does.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no one scene or one line where you can go, aha, that. But it's very much there. There's that sexual tension is there in the scene. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, it's skeevy. Yeah,
don't like it. And also on the back of that, Tumblr blog again, possession, demonic possession, angelic possession. Angelic possession maybe a little bit less because angels do have to have consent to take a vessel, but demonic possession, in much the same way I was like, oh, the poison and the control and the lack of consent, it's skeevy. Demonic possession as well. So if we were going to add that in, you'd have like Meg taking possession of Sam. I'm sure Dean got possessed at some point. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I don't think so, no. He was more careful.
Turned into a demon, totally different. He was not possessed by one. Yeah.
But yeah, there's like, I suppose Meg Sam then, as much as I love Meg Sam, you could argue I didn't include it in this because it's not overtly sexual. It's not sexual in nature.
Yeah.
But it's bodily autonomy. It's loss of control. You especially demonic possession, you can't withdraw your consent. See, with angelic possession,
Dean has that with Michael. Dean has that with Michael Dean, though, where then he's like, we had a deal and Michael decides to ride him anyway for however long it takes. So then there's that too.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's squicky with angels, isn't it? Because they go, oh no, you have to consent and you can eject us. But then
it's like they have a clause or something in there that, you weren't aware of. Yeah. Yeah.
The method of which you have to eject them is to be violated by someone else who comes and finds you in your own mind and goes, quick one, get them out, So at least demonic possession is up front. Like, I'm doing this without your consent. Angel possession, bit skeevy.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I didn't include it in here because it's not inherently sexual, but, maybe it's a topic for another episode. Maybe we'll do a deep dive into the dynamics of possession.
Yeah.
But yeah, sex and violence, all of it, gesture, all of it, skeevy. Chris Angel is a douchebag. I forget which episode of season 4 this is because I didn't write it down. Dean being sent to the chief. Isn't that funny? They sent him to a gay dom. But the implication is that maybe something happened because Dean comes back to Sam and goes, nothing I want to think about or talk about ever again. He very clearly does not give Sam any kind of anything on what happened. And I mean, I'm going to say the dom didn't seem particularly bad, he didn't. He made sure he knew what Dean's safe word was, or at least that he'd asked. But the nature of the scene is it is implied that Dean is not able to leave. You know, Dean's like, I'm just I've been had, I'm gonna leave, and he's like, nope, you ain't been had till you've been had by the chief. I watched it last night. I'm very aware.
I don't know. I still feel like if Dean had explained the situation, he would have been able to get out of it. I feel like that's my thing. I feel like this was a prank, like a horrible one that the magicians played on him. But I think he would have been able to get out of that scenario after that. But they don't let you know that. And I also feel like, to save face, Dean would have said nothing to Sam about what had happened.
Oh yeah,
he would not want Sam to be like,
even if
you and the chief.
Yeah, even if when it cuts off, because it cuts off as the chief goes, "Oh, what's your safe word?" And Dean does that very Jensen like. Yeah. I would call it a gip, but like a gag or a dry heave, because he makes that really distinctive like face when he does it, and you see him do it all the time when he's talking, especially like the raw ribs drunk story. And Jensen's like, I got sick thinking about what he'd done. You know, it's such a Jensen thing. But even if it had cut off right there and he'd gone, look, no, this is a big mistake, blah, 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 blah. And the guy had been like, and he seemed quite reasonable. He'd been like, oh shit, sorry, mate.
He seemed like a teddy bear underneath.
He did. He seemed like an absolute cutie. I agree with you. Dean would never, ever, ever have told Sam anything that happened. Just because Sam's a little brother, he'd be like, you remember that time you went to see a gay dom?
Plus, he's called the chief like in season 14. I would think they would have had like, the Apocalypse people call him chief. I would think Dean would just have so many bad reactions to that.
Just like, I'll feel dirty again.
Stop calling him that, please.
Stop it. Yeah. So we can't say definitively that anything happened. But again, I invite you to reverse the genders on that and see if it still feels as harmless. That's all.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So then season 4 was a whole riot of consent issues. But then honestly, that was kind of the theme of the season, which was, they both were like, oh, you have to consent, you have to let the angels in, blah, 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 blah. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. It was the demon blood.
Well, that was so. Wait.
Oh god, I'm confusing my season. Season 5 is the let the angels in, play a role. Season 4 is the seals.
Yeah, but they showed. But so there was still an explanation of that, I think, with Cass and Jimmy Novak. I think it's season 4. So I think you understood the dynamics of that too, where Jimmy had to consent. I think for Cass. So it might have been started, but then angels. You're right about the boys not having to like really think about it until season 5. Yeah. You're there. Yeah. You got it.
I'm there. So, you put the same thing in Sympathy for the Devil. I put Meg Kisses Dean as well. So then we move on to season 5, Sympathy for the Devil. So I'm gonna start off with Dean because I'm gonna shut the fucking talk about this one. So Meg kisses Dean. I can't remember the exact circumstance around that, but she does against his will. Meg is a prolific offender of this, just all the way through. She has
other demons hold him before she kisses him. So it's one of those things too, where he's being restrained by I think like 2 other demons.
Bobby's possessed.
Bobby comes in with them. Yeah.
Yes, I remember now. Yes. So she does, and Dean is obviously restrained, unable to give consent, even if he wanted to, which I think we've established apart from that Dean doesn't fuck demons. Sam does, but Dean doesn't. But the absolute, and it fucking, the level of anger that I have for that scene has not waned or diminished in any way. Every single time I see it, I want to punch something. You know the gif of Dean smashing up the motel room and he punches the mirror? That is the level of rage I get. We're talking like crowbar on the Impala, mad. Fucking Becky. Fucking Becky, right? I don't care what they tried to do to redeem her in the end, and oh no, she got snapped away. Fuck you, Becky! Fuck you! No, she deserved that and so much worse. Season 5, episode 1, Sympathy for the Devil. We open with Becky, and then Chuck contacts her, and she's like, I knew it was all real. She knocks on the door. She walks in, and she's like, oh, Sam, you exactly, and da-da-da. And then she puts her hands on Sam's chest. Completely uninvited. I'm doing the motion in front of myself. She puts her hands on Sam's chest, completely uninvited. And he's like, what?
He asks nicely,
and then he
too.
asks her specifically, please stop touching me. And she goes, no. The level of fucking rage. What the fuck? And what the fuck was that? I don't even need to gender reverse that. What the fuck was he supposed to do?
Yeah.
Jared Padalecki is 6'4", and most of the places that you get stats on Jared put him in at around 220 pounds, which is all fucking muscle. He's not a fat guy. So if we assume Sam has those same stats, 6'4.5", sometimes you see 6'4", sometimes you see 6'5". Man's tall anyway. 220. She's probably what? Like 5'4", 5'5". She probably weighs like 120 pounds. What can he physically do to stop her from doing this without looking like he's hurting her? I mean, it's fabulous predicament bondage. It really is. He is physically restrained by the fact he cannot put his hands on her. He's 3 times her size.
I think this is
he's
where
very nice about it.
Yeah.
Just, please stop. And she's like, no.
I feel like this is such a art imitating life thing, because it's, I mean, unfortunately, like Becky, I think, is representing the fandom. And I can only imagine, again, we get back to instances where I'm sure, like, I understand, and I feel like it's an appropriate thing when you're going in for a photo op or whatever, like, you ask if it's okay to do these things. And I mean, I'm sure, and I think we've heard instances where, you know, fans just aren't appropriate the way that they act with the boys. And again, we get back to, what are they conditioned to in their behavior, and what do they feel like they're allowed to do and not allowed to do in situations like that. So again, it's really icky. I
mean, Danielle went off at a convention, didn't she? And she has been labeled a bitch ever since. Someone puts their hands inappropriately on Jared and Jensen, and they go, whoa. Suddenly they're the asshole to the fan. That's how it will be perceived. I know Sandra shared some of her con pictures and stuff, but I've seen pictures of Sandra when she's like hugged Jensen and stuff, and there's quite a considerable height difference between the pair of them, because he's stupid tall. So when he hugs Sandra, his arms come around Sandra's shoulders, because that's naturally where she comes up to on his chest. But when you hug Jensen, your arms and hands are pretty close to his ass. And you can see in the photos where you've lifted, like you've angled your arms upwards, so you're touching the middle of his back. You're not anywhere near the bottom of his shirt, like, or
don't touch
belt.
There. And there's like, you know, like, it's like the Holy Spirit. Like, you know, you don't let your groin
leave room for Jesus.
you don't let those parts get in there. Don't let them touch, you know.
Exactly. And that is just purely respect for another human being. You don't know him. He doesn't know you. He's hugging you because you've paid a lot of money for him to hug you. And I'm sorry, I don't want to devalue your con experience, but that's what it is.
That's true. You know? And I think people have to understand that what you're paying for is an experience, but there are limits to what you are allowed to do with the talent.
But you know what? I'm sure if you abandoned your entire life and your family and everything and just moved to Austin and just like, I will bump into one of them at some point. I'm sure if you did, and it was like maybe not in like the grocery store or Target or whatever, but if you bumped into them on the street and you were just like, oh my God, hi, can I have a hug? Can we take a picture? I'm sure they would give you a hug. I'm sure they wouldn't be. I feel like Jared is quite a huggy person.
We've seen that anyway. Like, you see when they're out in the wild, like, they're willing to, you know, put their arms around somebody, give them a hug, you know, take a picture.
And in the wild, you would be respectful of a person's boundaries. You wouldn't put your hands on their ass, like align your pelvic regions together in a hug, whatever. You just naturally be respectful of someone else's space. And that applies in photo ops at cons as well.
Yeah.
Just be respectful of someone's space and acknowledge that while, yes, you have paid for this experience and they will do what you ask them to do, it's within reason. And I've never heard of Jared or Jensen saying anything to a fan about being handsy or putting their hands somewhere they shouldn't do. But I'm sure it's happened.
Oh, I'm sure it's happened. And I just...
And again, it's
that conundrum of like, they're accepting it. They're accepting the consent's always paramount, but it's like, Jesus, like some fans are just off the rails. And I don't know how much more they would just have to block out, just like somebody who's, I mean, I don't know how far we want to equate it, but like say, like a model for like Playboy or Hustler, or like how much of that are you doing? And you're just doing an out of body thing at some point. Like you're just like, just this is what I have to do just to like make the money thing. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you okay with? So
yeah. And the thing is, that's a whole nother conversation that's not particularly for this podcast. But that is a massive issue in the adult entertainment industry. Female talent pushed to do X, Y, and Z beyond their boundaries, and just being told, well, if you don't do it, you won't get paid, and things like that. But it's like you said, art imitates life there. Sam has no way to physically remove Becky from touching him without coming across aggressive towards her. And in much the same way, there's not many people that are Jared's size specifically. I keep harping on about Jared, but like, my husband is taller than Jensen. He just looks fucking tall, because he's surrounded by smaller people. He just looks tall by association.
Yeah.
But like, nobody really comes up to Jared. So if like someone gives him a hug and they're like Sandra's size, or even my size, for example, I'm 5'8", so Jared's got like 8 inches on me. Fucking child. I only know that because I googled it last night. I didn't Google it. I counted it up on my fingers. I was like, I'm 5'8", and he's 6'4". What's the difference? So, if they put their hands around him for a hug and they put their hands on his ass, how is he supposed to get out of that situation without, he can step backwards, but if they step with him, he's got no choice but to like throw their hands off him.
Yeah.
He then looks like the aggressor. They were just giving him a hug, and he's like, shoved them backwards off, like got his hands in between their arms and like thrown their arms off him or whatever. Dependent on the video or photographic evidence of that, he looks like the aggressor that's just attacked somebody.
Yeah.
For no reason. So I think that's maybe why the Becky thing gets to me so much, because it's so close to real life.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And he asks her so nicely, and she's such a fucking bitch. Anyway.
Yeah.
Becky is my personal pet peeve in this entire show. She had no redemption arc. Fuck you. I hope Jack didn't bring you back, you absolute cow. So the next,
just a quick thing, going back to the fan stuff. I've always found it interesting what the reaction is to a man coming in for a photo op and wanting a hug scenario, and if that's viewed differently by people, and how Jared and Jensen we've talked about. I know you've talked about like the picture I have with Jensen and Misha and Ted and I just couldn't do it. And I was like, Ted, I was like, Ted, I said, can you just stand next to Jensen? He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I just don't think I can deal with it right now. I was like, I'm fine. I'll just be next to Misha. And you were like very much,
that's the other one.
Yeah. But you were like very much like Jensen's very making sure it just looks like a bro hug. There's like nothing else side by side and all that in space and stuff. But like, I mean, I'm sure there's there's been instances of, male attracted males who want a hug with Jared and Jensen. And is that perceived differently by them? And do they feel like they have a little bit more say so? Do you know what I mean? So again, like what's ingrained in our societal thought process deal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I
mean, we harped on, I suppose it's worth clarifying that we harped on very much about women sound like an insult, women potentially being appropriate with Jared and Jensen, and that is not to generalize, not all women, but the fandom is
heavily
proportionally more women to men, so the odds of something like that happening are skewed against women there that it would be a woman, simply because there's more of them. Not all women, and not all men, not all men, not all women. We're going with the stats as given that the fandom is predominantly female. So yeah, all I can think of it when you say photo shoot with you and Ted is the quad op with Creepy Mish.
Oh yeah,
with his hand on Ted's shoulder. Tired Alex and Creepy Mish. Oh god. So that Creepy Mish takes on a whole different fucking thing now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Moving on swiftly. Season 5. Me and Sandra actually went back and forth on this one. 5:11. Sam interrupted, and in our beautiful table, I just put Wendy ? And Sandra came in with this really, really thoughtful response. The teen is not well, so I would say no. I feel like you've got to know you've got the power. Maybe it's Wendy's default safe mechanism, or a way to feel important / seen. No idea what's going on in the young woman's head. Completely agree. They're in a mental hospital. The assumption is that the young lady is mentally unwell. Mentally unwell people not do as in all of them, but they can have lowered inhibitions. They can be more overtly sexual, more sexually aggressive. That is known, and it's just a kiss in the grand scheme of things. It's worth noting, though, that Sam doesn't kiss back, but Dean does.
Yeah.
That's worth noting as well.
Dean's creepy. Dean can be creepy.
And,
Dean doesn't understand boundaries. Yes. Yeah, there are times he does not understand.
I think Dean takes the implied non-verbal consent there, whereas Sam is like, I'm in a mental hospital, fuck. Because you notice how Dean doesn't have to tell Sam that he can't hit that. Sam has to tell Dean.
Sam is Dean's Jiminy Cricket at times. Yes.
You cannot do this. Stop
yeah.
that. So the thing for me is the Wendy thing, it's not black and white. It's not cut and dried. But in the context of the show and all the different examples that we have, gender swap that. Sam and Dean are females. It's a random guy in a mental hospital coming up and doing that. Suddenly it seems a lot more sinister, doesn't it?
It does, but I'm still taking it in the context of, and again, I know I probably shouldn't, but I'm harping on the fact that it's a kiss. And so if it had gone a different way, then yes, absolutely. I think then it gets much shadier. But I still feel like there would be that initial part of, the teen's not well, doing that kind of thing.
But do you think society would give that grace to a male?
No, probably not. I think that's what I wrote in there. Yeah, it still would not be I think society's interpretation would be different. I'm
not saying you're wrong, and I completely agree with you. The Wendy, it is a very great area because she is unwell. We know this. I just think, like so many things in Supernatural, if the genders were reversed, there would have been outcry.
Yeah.
That's really important in an upcoming episode. And then we've got kind of like the Sam Lucifer moments that you see when they're together in season 5. Very similar to the Siren episode. There's not one thing that you can go, that. But there's a real undercurrent of ick. I'm not explaining myself well, but you know what I mean? It's like a sexual undertone.
It's almost like that's everybody's go-to for like power play stuff. Like, like treating somebody in a sexual way.
It's funny. I remember seeing a con video, and I couldn't tell you what con it was or anything like that. But Jared was saying, I think somebody had maybe asked why they got knocked out so often, or why they did like bungee cord their weapons, like the guy in the convention episode asked, and things like that. And Jared said, he's like, with big guys, they have to make us like, they have to, nullify some of that power to give the bad guy a fighting chance. If they don't knock us out, or if they don't take our weapons, or if they don't wall us up or whatever, it's not believable that the bad guy would potentially be able to win. And I think that's what it is. There's not, by nature of casting two people like Jared and Jensen, you're really gonna struggle to find other actors that look like they could hold up against, like it would be a fair fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably because, again, what can you do? What can they do? If a little like Meg, all of Meg's actresses were little skinny, little wafy things. If she decides she's gonna come up to Dean and do this, or she's gonna do that, we can argue about John's parenting all we want, but Dean is respectful of women. He's not just going to shove her away. What can he do? Yeah. And I think you'd probably have Jared and Jensen having an issue with that as well, because you would have to be aggressive towards the actress, Because
there's another scene with Meg. I think the boys are tied up. I don't remember which episode. Is it that one? Yeah, you've got it in there too. Yeah. She sits on Dean's lap and he's tied up.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the Meg things, a lot of the Meg scenes have them restrained in other ways, and she's taking advantage of them being restrained.
Isn't it weird how the one Meg was like all about Sam, and then this version of Meg is like all about like nullifying Dean in every way, shape, or form? It's interesting.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. It does seem to be the default, but also even with Lucifer, even with the implications are not, I don't know whether this is just an angel possession thing, but the implications do seem to be more sexual with Lucifer's, like, I'm trying to think how to word it, intent towards Sam. Lucifer views their relationship. Michael.
Yeah.
No, Michael seems to view Dean as a means to an end.
Yeah.
This is my true vessel. This is the one I will be most powerful in. Lucifer seems to be really important to Lucifer that Sam submits to him. And it's just a skeevy undercurrent just gives me the ick.
Yeah.
A little bit. And then we're gonna touch on that. Don't worry, guys, we're nearly at the end of the table. Keep looking at the clock going, oh bollocks, I'm gonna get yelled at after this. So then we move forward to season 6, Live Free, Try Hard, 6-5. The whole vampire thing is ick.
It's very icky because it's a guy too. If the roles were reversed and it was a girl that had turned Dean, I think it would have been different. I think there would have been a different vibe to it. It still would have been icky. I think it's different because it's a guy.
Oh, yeah, because gay people queer, but let's not. Well, I'm just going to cut that train of thought off right now, because otherwise we'll be here for another 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then Sandra will be going, this is unusable.
No, but that's my fault because I pointed that out. If you want to go at it, you can.
No, we'll stop. But the whole, like, they have, like, females that they've turned, like, chained up. And it's just icky.
Yeah.
Nada. Don't like it. Clap your hands if you believe. 6-9. The whole abduction storyline. The whole of that. And I understand and I appreciate that being abducted and probed is like, it's just like a societally accepted, like, yeah, aliens, sure, whatever. It's sort of, I can't think of the word, but it's not culturally accepted, but it's culturally known. It's myth that's culturally known. And encounters of the fourth kind, but stuff. But it's the fact that it's joked about so often. And like Dean is very clearly traumatized by what's happened to him.
Because he's like, I'm going to go take a shower. Yeah.
We know that they didn't do anything to Dean. He makes that very clear. He like resisted, he fought, whatever. They didn't do anything to Dean. But Sam's like, oh, yeah, I think the fourth kind's a butt thing, you know. And yeah, soulless Sam. All right. But
and
still,
I'm sorry, I still think that Dean wouldn't necessarily say everything that happened. So you really don't know. You just don't know. So I feel like
skeeve.
Yeah.
Just all around skeeve. And again, if you gender swapped it, it would be sinister. But because it's a guy, that's funny, isn't it? No. Yeah. Almost being raped is not funny to anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, caged heat, 6:10. Meg ties up, or Meg has Sam and Dean captured and tied up, and then she comes and she like sits on Dean's lap, and she's very flirty and suggestive and telling him to don't, you know, telling him that he's making her like meat suit aroused and to don't act like he doesn't like it when he says that he wants to be untied and things like that. And it's just just
icky.
Ick. Okay.
Oh boy.
The big one, guys. Sandra's in the dock as well. Like, oh, fucking hell. The big one. If this episode had been gender swapped, this whole show would have been cancelled. Yeah. I guarantee it. It would have been cancelled. I'm sure you all know. 7-8, time for a wedding. What the fuck was that? What was that fucking episode? I don't care if they slipped a line in about not consummating the marriage. She roofied him and tied him to her bed.
Yeah.
And also, there is a very clear line when he wakes up and he's like, Becky, where are my pants? Whichever way you want to spin that, she roofied him, which is ick. She had to have touched him to get him into bed, to tie him up, to take his fucking jeans off. Maybe she was completely pure and chaste, and maybe she copped a feel. We don't know. If that episode had been reversed, if Sam and Dean were girls and a guy had kidnapped Sam and tied him up, the fucking show, or her up, the show would have been cancelled. It would not have flown with anybody.
Yeah.
But because Sam's a big guy, it's funny, isn't it? And then this just directly carries on from Becky refusing to stop touching him. And this is, I've never hated a fictional character. No, wait. No, I've never hated a fictional character as much as I hate this one. Ever. I'm so mad the Yorkshire's coming out. I can hear it. I can feel it in my voice. Oh! And just like the scene in Sympathy for the Devil, my anger for that episode, if anything, gets worse the more time goes on. Because like I'm rewatching now, I'm in the middle of season 6. I know that when I get to 7, oh, fucking there it's going to be. Oh, there it's going to be.
I feel like she wasn't as bad in season 5.
Don't you come in this podcast and Becky sympathize.
No. I'm talking about that one episode, The Real Ghostbusters. I'm trying to remember, aside from like, I can't remember her, like, did she touch Sam in that one?
Him, but she doesn't touch him.
Okay.
She like, she's suggestive, but it's culturally acceptable, societally acceptable.
Yeah, and then it was a total
she's flirty with him, but it's nothing that.
And I think she has to be because she's with Chuck technically at the time. So if she wasn't with Chuck, I think it would have been all bets are off. She would have been all over him again. Yeah.
So if you took that episode out of the context of Becky and Sam, it would look okay. You'd be like, oh, poor Becky, she likes him. But when you put it back in, you're like, oh, fucking hell. Stop that. So fuck Becky. 100% don't fuck Becky. Leave her in the wherever the clicky people went. There she goes. No. Absolutely not. Fuck her. Right. Moving on. Sam's season 7 hallucinations. Now, the lead up to this starts in season 6, actually, with the episode where Dean becomes death for the day, and Sam summons Balthazar and tells Balthazar what Dean is doing and says that he doesn't want his soul back. And Balthazar goes, yeah, you don't. Lucifer and Michael have been hate banging it for over a year. No, you don't. So that kind of lays the groundwork for what his it's not even implied. It's specifically stated.
It's interesting too, then, and in that Balthasar actually says Lucifer and Michael. And then the Michael that takes over Dean is a different Michael from like a different Apocalypse world.
Dean's possession is by Apocalypse World Michael, because Michael never depossessed Adam.
Yeah,
I don't know
guess.
what is the word. Yeah, he doesn't, because when they remember that Jake Abel is an actor that exists and bring him back,
he's still
towards the end of the show.
He's still in Adam's vessel.
And they're two distinct characters as well. There's Adam and Michael.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I said, it's not alluded to. It's specifically stated that Michael and Lucifer raped Sam repeatedly, whether that is mentally, as in his soul, because we know physically he wasn't in the cage for a very long time, but we don't know what occurred while he was down there, his physical body. But yeah, certainly mentally raped Sam repeatedly, and Lucifer kind of taunts him with it in the hallucinations. Oh my god, I feel sick.
Yeah.
It's just because it's very overt. You know, there's not like Dean's hell experience is like, oh, maybe, you know, you could look past it if you wanted to. It's there, but if you just didn't want to engage with it, you could look past it. But this is very, very specific that is what is happening. Yeah, and thank God that's the second to last one, because I've made myself feel really unwell now. And then the last instance that I could find, and I fully admit that this is probably not a definitive list. There are probably much, much more. And again, is demonic possession, sexual assault, consent issues, blah, 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 you know. But it's season 10, 10-6, Ask Jeeves, which is when the boys get a call for Bobby. And they're like, sorry, he's dead. And they go to the house, and someone's made a devil, and there's hellhounds and stuff like that. And they're just a whole bunch of grandma ladies that are just on Sam, who is left going, no.
So that one for the Ask Jeeves was, I'm looking at the scene now, and I know that they're having to figure out who the shapeshifter is. So Sam goes in, sits on the couch in between the ladies, and he puts he's putting his arms over one, and he's like touching one's like thigh to see if they'll react to the silver in that situation. And it doesn't seem, I'm looking at it right now, like
I'm thinking more specifically of the one that corners him on her own. And she says something like, women are like a fine wine, they get better with age, or something like that. And he's just like, I
think that might just be her really trying hard flirting wise, but I don't think it's like actually good. It doesn't work. Like, aside from the flirting, she's hoping. And he totally she goes into the room and he's out.
I will say, I did put down that I couldn't remember it if touching occurred. But this is, again,
it's a power thing. It gets into power too, because these are people with money and what they think they can and can't get away with. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And again, it leaves Sam. He can't leave. He can't remove himself from this situation. He has no choice but to endure these comments and these looks. And again, yes, he consensually touches them for a reason,
right? But
that does not necessarily mean that he wants their advances.
Yeah.
And again, I would invite you to be like, would it be the same if it was gender swapped and it was a bunch of old dudes aggressively hitting on a lady? No, it would not. I couldn't find anything. Nothing particularly sprung out to my mind after that episode. So there may have been, and if you can think of something that we missed or something that comes, 10 to 15.
One thing that I was just thinking about was season 11 with Dean and Amara, that whole relationship thing, and how, it's literally like a god that he's like trying to figure out what the heck's going on. There's no way, shape, or form that's ever going to be on a level playing field, but there's this, they turn it into this romantic sexual tension thing that would have been totally different if it had been Chuck which people have said,
it.
like, you know, sometimes like, what the heck? Like Chuck had a weird obsession with Dean, you know, it's actually stated, you know, like somewhere. And it's just like, you know, again, I always wonder, like, what did he put the boy through? Like, what scenarios did he put him through? And Sam too, but in particular, he just is very pervy towards Dean. And power was always there.
Also, another situation I considered putting in, but I didn't because it wasn't as simple as it appeared. I cannot remember what episode it is, but it's the one where Chuck's written that Lilith is going to come and they're desperately trying to do opposite things to what's happened. And Lilith does come to Sam and she's like, I'll make a deal with you, but it takes more than a kiss to seal a deal with me.
Yeah.
And initially it looks like, you know,
I think that's the monster at the end of this book. I think that's what that one is.
Oh, yeah.
Season 4, I think. Yeah.
And initially, it looks like consent under duress. It looks like she gives him no choice. What else can he do but accept this deal and sleep with her? But then you find out very quickly that Sam actually, he's bluffing her and he has no intentions of going through with the deal. He's going to, I can't remember what his plan was, but he's bluffing her. So it's, you know, he consents to the kiss that they share because it's a bluff. So I didn't include it.
Okay.
But, you know, this just happens a lot in this show. And I just feel like it needed to be drawn attention to, especially in the light of the Then and Now podcast covering Red Sky at morning, you know, and being like, isn't it funny?
If they ever get to time for a wedding, I'd love to see how that ends up being talked about. I mean, there's so many too that are coming up probably that it would be interesting. To see.
I mean, what
the reactions are.
We've got the various season 4 episodes with Alistair and Dean, the various season 4 episodes with Sam and Ruby, the Siren episode. What are they going to say about that? Chris Angel is a douchebag. I would be very interested to see, you know, what they think about the Becky storyline, though. But yeah. Like we said at the beginning, guys, it was always on the docket because me and Sandra always had, you know, kind of feelings about the inappropriateness of some of the scenes in the show, you know, and how the boys are very much exploited in that way and taken advantage of in that way, and it's brushed off because they're big strong guys. Yeah. And I do think it's worth taking into account. This show started in 2005. That is a long fucking time ago, culturally, than it should be. So much has changed since 2005 that things that were acceptable are no longer acceptable. But all we can do is look back with 2023 eyes. So if they started Supernatural again, would they do this stuff? No, probably not. Because I think people are aware that this is not okay. But I don't think it being set in 2005 and onwards is an explanation, but I don't think it's an excuse.
It is interesting too, because like I'm thinking about the episode in season 15, it's the Proverbs episode where it's where you start to see that Chuck is kind of like inserting himself in again after they think that, you know, they've taken care of a bunch of stuff, but then Lilith comes back, and Lilith she makes a comment where, you know, they were kind of leaning or hoping that, you know, Dean was going to, I guess, have sex with her, thinking she was this damsel in distress situation. And she says something to Dean like, so I guess we're not doing that now. No. And I feel like that's maybe like a shift a little bit, like maybe a representation of maybe the change that Dean might have had to in a situation like that, not necessarily just flirting automatically, but being more understanding of boundaries and things like that. So maybe that's a reflection of, you know, how little ways it's changed. Not that it was leaps and bounds of great change, but I think, yeah, it's like 2 generations worth at least of time from like maybe when it started and when it ended. So
I don't I don't want to crush that, but I think that was more an acting choice of Jensen's than a character development of Dean's, because it maybe wasn't so apparent in Supernatural. And we know that Sam still gets his chest out in season 15. But on the back of comments made by Jensen when he was filming The Boys about scenes that he refused to film, and the reasoning being that he was a son, a husband, a father, and he could not portray himself that way. It went against his morals, his integrity. I think probably season 15, 20, all 6 of the Ackles and Padalecki kids had been born by then, JJ was, shit, how old would she have been? Like 7, 8, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they weren't even babies anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably more of an acting choice of Jensen's, to be like, I don't want. And also, wasn't Lilith in the body of like a Girl Scout?
Not a girl. Oh, well, she was like a camper. So it was like, but she was like a college. She graduated from college. So she was early 20s.
Yeah. But then if you think about it, Jensen filming season 15 is in his 40s.
Yeah.
Dean is supposed to be older than Jensen. I can totally see Jensen being like, no, I will not, even acting, flirt with a girl in her early 20s. I am a married man in my 40s. Absolutely not.
I think if you look at the episode again, because like I said, it's a fresher episode, I feel, in my mind, and the way that it's structured, I feel that they're intentionally putting them in situations to see reactions. So I think in that case, it's a Dean not falling into his usual routine scenario.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. But I definitely agree about the, probably like what, say, Jensen would have been willing to do within the scene itself. But the way it's written, you're supposed to see that there's this immediate assumption of what Dean would do, but that's not what happened. So I think that's probably a combination of stuff. Yeah.
No, I don't want to be like, oh, there's no character growth on Dean, because there is. I'm just like, I'm not sure that character growth came from the writers. I think it might have come from Jensen. Still character growth, 100%, but I think we might be giving props to the wrong place here. I think it might have been Jensen.
Let's see who wrote that one. I'll check who wrote that episode, because that makes a big deal too. Who the writers behind certain episodes you feel have a better understanding of just even like the arc of the show, characters and stuff. Some just throw it all out the window. Others are more, I think, in tune to a specific character when they write. So I'll have to look. That episode was written by Steve Yoki, who he's written like 30 episodes, and he's written some actually pretty good episodes that did a lot of character development, like Various and Sundry Villains, where Sam and Rowena have the chat in the car about Lucifer, the nihilism episode with Dean in Michael's head. So in that situation, I feel like that writer, probably got the characters a little bit more too. So,
it's nearly been 20 years since Supernatural started. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's nearly been 20 years since Supernatural started. Yeah, we can all cry together. Come on Twitter, we'll have a cry cuddle bubble. And we're looking back at it now with 2020's eyes.
Yeah.
So as long as things are moving forward and they're changing, that's fine.
Yeah.
But as long as we've got people still stuck in the mindset of the Then and Now podcast that think it's funny, we got to keep talking about it. It's, it's that simple. If there are people out there that still think men being put in these positions, men being sexually assaulted, sexually exploited, like I want to make it clear that I'm specifically talking about Sam and Dean here. I'm not talking about Jared and Jensen being forced into scenes that they're uncomfortable with, because I think both of them would have stood up for themselves. So I think we can argue the actual consensual sex scenes, Jared and Jensen were fine to film. I don't think they were pressured into filming them or anything like that. But specifically Sam and Dean being assaulted, being exploited in that manner. If people still think it's funny, we need to still be pointing out that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Until people stop laughing and start going, oh shit, no. Yeah, no, all right. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, if we missed anything, if there's a particular scene that you really think needs attention drawing to it, or if any of these scenes you've gone, I don't really see it that way, come and have a chat. Reach out to us in the comments. Reach out to us on Twitter. Send us an email. Come and have a chat. Sandra, where can they send us an email?
If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at idlingintheletterdImpala. If you'd like to make your voice a male, check the description for a link to send us a voice message. You can find links to our personal socials and our AO3 accounts in the description. And there's also a link to my author website with my original fiction.
Woo! So don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and leave us a comment or a review depending on where you access this podcast. You know, I might do a thing on Twitter and find out where people... Where are y'all listening, guys? Are you YouTubers? Are you on Spotify? You know, what is happening? But wherever you are, leave us a like and a comment and a review. Cool, thanks. Check out the current causes we're championing, I can't speak, in the description as well. And with that, we will say thank you very much for joining us in the backseat, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.